the whole Navy SEAL. Don't wish it was easier, wish you were better.
Yeah.
Right? And we talked about earlier, right before this, there's part of your brain when you do hard stuff, anterior cingulate gyrus, when you do hard stuff, it grows. And it's bigger in people who go through harder stuff. It's smaller in people, by the way, who are overweight. It gets bigger when they actually lose weight. So it's like the brain is wired to do one, what it will, again, you can train your brain to see what you want to see. You don't see the world the way it is, you see the world the way you are.
Welcome to the Super Clinic Project Podcast, where we take regular clinic owners and turn them into cash-based multimillionaire entrepreneurs. Warning, if you're a doctor who listens to this podcast regularly, you will make millions of dollars. Do not listen to this podcast unless you want to be a successful clinic owner who helps thousands of patients achieve their health goals and adds more money than you can imagine to your bank account. You've been warned.
Dr. Dan Sullivan, welcome to the Super Clinic Project. How are you, man?
Rory, it's good to be here, man. I think we're going to get into some great stuff that the listener is going to be glad they listened to and or watch. So yeah, excited for this.
I hope so. You're setting big expectations. I kind of wanted to start with what we've been seeing in the marketplace. It kind of feels like maybe we're in a bit of a recession, a Main Street recession, right? The media will tell us the stock market's at all-time highs and everything, but like what I notice is the Main Street entrepreneur, the healthcare entrepreneur, the person that's running their chiropractic clinic, the person that's running their alternative health clinic is a little bit more down. Like I don't know that they feel as hopeful as maybe they felt in 2019 or 2021. Do you notice that?
I've noticed that in the entrepreneur space. And yes, unfortunately, I have noticed a little bit in the natural health space. But here's what I will say. They're paying attention to the wrong stuff. They're choosing to actually look at the wrong stuff. Here's what we know. The brain is unbelievably complex, but yet simple. You will find what you're looking for. I could train your brain to only see red cars. And you only see red cars. Everybody's experienced that, right? Example, you found a car you like, you see it everywhere. Were there more of them? No, you're attuned to it. So I just think part of this, right, if we're talking to natural health people and people in the space that own a business or maybe aspire to own a business, I just say, look at this. Look at what Bobby Kennedy's doing right now. Look at the last couple of weeks with the CDC. But yeah, here's the other thing for me. When you talk about marketing, like I have been on, so I'm back in the saddle. I've run practices and I know, dude, I'm sorry, I just kind of going off here, but I can't help myself because I think that if you are a natural health practitioner and you feel like, oh, it's less, it's not as good, it's like, that's on you. Because I walk into these rooms and in my community, I walk into rooms, I do a lot of talks. And here's what I know. I walk into a room and 24.3% of those people have chronic pain every single day. 40 to 50% of those people have digestive problems. 46 to 53% of them have headaches every single day. And half, if not more, are suffering with sleep problems. Now, let's just stop there. We could go to the whole other list. But let's just stop there. If you look at sleep, if somebody's not sleeping through the night, their brain is not actually detoxifying. It's what we call the lymphatic system. It only detoxifies at night. If you don't sleep, and that's just at night, it detoxifies when you sleep. If you don't sleep, you literally increase at a high level dementia, the risk of dementia and Alzheimer's. Now, let me take a breath here and say this. If you are finding yourself struggling to grow your business. Now, it's one thing if you're figuring out how to scale. It's like, man, I got all the people in the world. I just need to how to like do systems and by all means, you need to figure that out. But if you're struggling finding people to take care of, like Warren Buffett said this one time, he said, he's looking at and evaluating a colleague of his in high school and said, this guy's brilliant, smarter than I am, arguably, but he never had, quote unquote, the life, whether or not we can get to a whole other thing, success and fulfillment, what that means. But he basically said, I realized it was because of my choices and the boat that I was in. It wasn't because I'm smarter. And he said, I realized it was not how fast you can row. It's what boat you're in. And so I'll end that statement with this. if you're in natural healthcare, you're in a big flipping boat that people need you more than ever.
Yeah.
So what I will say is maybe you've boxed yourself in. Maybe you've gotten burned out. I'm not saying every day is great and this, it's like amazing, but I'm saying when you take a step back and you start with why, and I know you've heard that many times, but it's that element of deep down, why you doing what you're doing? And do people know? I have found that most chiros and natural health people who get burned out get lost in the business and or the success side according to the world versus the why I'm doing it side. So that's not maybe a line that people want to hear or a concept people want to hear. That's just what I'm sensing. And so, yeah, I think that when you look at like the Hormozis launch the last couple of weeks, and you look at entrepreneurship that may not seem to be as cool as it once was. But I think the reality with that is Facebook, and this is your world, Facebook, social media, organic, paid, it's maybe not hitting, right, like it used to. And so there's got to be a pivot. Now we got AI and all the things they can do. I just think that if you're not good, you will be exposed. And you can't just get good by saying you're good or by getting an agency that's going to tell you you're good. You got to do the deep work. Cal Newport wrote a book, A Deep Work. Have you done that deep work that allows you to show up and expect that I'm going to, and more importantly, help people? So anyway, sorry, dude. I don't mean to go off, but I do. So that was, you asked.
Rants are encouraged on this show. So like, that brings me to this. And I remember I used to, my background is I consider this my background because it's what built my character is sports, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I look at myself as kind of an overachieving athlete because I played basketball and I have the wrong skin color, right? So like I didn't have that. I wasn't born. I wasn't the guy who was jumping, over people's heads. I had to like figure out gritty ways of getting good. And you're talking about something where it's like are you good, right? And I took the sports background, the athletics background, and I tried to apply it to business. And I've always looked at things where it's like, okay, maybe I don't know how to do this awesome yet, but if I freaking put more work in than anyone else, not just copying people, right? Because I think that's what a lot of people do. Oh, what worked for you? Okay, I'll just copy that. I'll just copy whatever that guy did. But it's like if I put in the deep work like you were saying, and I really dive in and I feel the feels and I go deep and I figure out where it is I need to improve, like I'm going to figure this thing out, right? Cuz I've done it in the past, right? If you can learn one thing, you can learn anything. So, I think if we apply that to maybe something more specific, when you talk about, okay, maybe like just the standard kind of stock social media ads aren't working anymore. I think that's an experience a lot of people have, right? It's like, you know, I used to be able to just like hire an agency and they'd run their one or two ads and like I'd get a bunch of patients from it and it cost me, $1,000 or $2,000 a month. And it was just like this very simple math problem and the ROI was worth it. And if it stopped working, I'd go hire someone else and they'd run their one or two ads. Right. And, so I guess what I'm getting at is like, well, maybe what you're not good at is content, right? So yeah, there's digital content. Are you speaking and influencing people on YouTube? Are you speaking and influencing people on Facebook? Are you speaking and influencing people in in-person events? Are you speaking and influencing people at corporate events, right? Like maybe that's the thing that you're not good at. Oh, you can adjust or you can do whatever procedure you do or whatever treatment that you specialize in. But have you worked on that other skill? Like is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, I think it comes down. I mean, it is. What you're saying is communication, and I want to make sure if you are listening, listen. There's hope for any of us. All of us are need hope and help. And I'm a Jesus guy. I pull no punches on that. I just think that, and we have a God of restoration and redemption and regeneration, and He created a body that can heal and regenerate. So no matter where you're at, you may think, hey, I'm at the bottom of the barrel. I could never speak like this or do this or create content like this. And I can't afford an agency, so I can't do ads like that. And I won't be able to speak. I'm just telling you, you can. Like, you can get better. Chances are you prayed for the position you were at one point in your life. I loved somebody said this one time. Where you're at right now, you prayed for this earlier, whether it be 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 12 years ago. You prayed for where you're at. So, like, let's start there and say, okay, to your point, Rory, if I learn one thing, then I can learn. Now, I want to just add some hope. And the hope is this, one, you're in the right, the other part is, we said it, you're in the right boat. You're in the right boat. But yes, it will require some understanding of how communication works. So whether you're on a video, whether you're live, whether you're trying to get creative for, getting people's attention, you have to be able to learn to communicate. It is the magic sauce. It's the thing. And it's not magic, but it's the sauce that's going to get you to wherever you want to go, unfortunately, right? Because I'll take clients and I'll say, okay, are you great at what you do? On a scale, like on a scale of 1 to 10, how good are you what you do? And then I'll say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how great are you at communicating what you do? And then I'll say, and it's usually like as far as my skills, I'm a 9 out of 10 to get results. I'm maybe a 6 out of 10 or a 5 out of 10 of communicating those results or communicating to the world via marketing and, sales. But then I'll say, unfortunately, what is the public at large? What are they gauging you on? The results that you're giving, or your ability to communicate those results and reach them and care about them? See, it's the unfortunate truth, right? And it's not even unfortunate. It's the reality. Jesus had to do, like, he turned skeptics to believers, but he also couldn't preach in his hometown. He couldn't heal in his hometown. So I think this is the key, is that you have to first understand that your mirror neurons. I love the brain. We were talking about that, and I appreciate your, comments about that. I just love the brain. I'm not a guru at the brain. I just love it. I love to understand how things work when it relates to the biology and psychology. So when one recognizes that your communication starts more with your belief and conviction than it does with anything that's going to come out of your mouth, you start to win this game. We've all been in situations where, whether it be on a video, do you know how many videos I've done where I don't even hardly know what I said, but people responded to it because I was in a state, and that state delivered what we call a mirror neuron effect. When you see somebody yawn, you yawn. When you see somebody emotional, you get emotional. It's called mirror neurons. So the people that you're reaching or attempting to reach, they're feeling you more than they're hearing you. But there's been times where I have literally had the greatest script. I had it in my head exactly what I was going to say, but it wasn't in my spirit. I didn't feel the message. It sounded like a good message. And I'll be honest that the areas that I've been most frustrated in the last 2, 3, 4 years is where I've just constantly had this idea. So me going B2B, I've got, a practice where I go, B2C, but then I've got a business model or speaking and things like that where I go B2B. It drives me crazy. And you could shine light on this. I hate getting up thinking about what's the perfect angle that I need to go at that they're going to hear. It's like, no. I just want to get passionate about the thing that I know, get good at getting the right people in the rooms, and then give them an opportunity. And if they want it, great. If not, cool. But I think that's what, I'm going back to, two phrases here, 2 parts here, and I'm sorry I'm dissecting it. But one is communication's key. Your mirror neurons and belief and conviction is critical. In fact, it's the only, right, 7% of communication is your words. So it's got to be something deeper, and we know what it is now, and we know that we can improve that. So I want to tell you there is hope. But the other side, I'm going back to your other question, I think the weariness that we see in the, in the industry, it comes from this idea that I just talked about. They're just sick and tired of having to try to get people's attention, and realizing it's less and less and less because there's more competitors. And now they just get jaded, and they're not good enough to come out of that and really, really just be that person that, people are drawn to and attracted to. So I know I just said a lot there, dude, but that was my 2 cents.
Yeah, dude. I mean, there's so many little points that I want to hit on, and I'm just trying to figure out which one, right? But Yeah, it's like you know, people do get jaded. Everybody gets jaded. I've been jaded myself, right? Where it's like you know, when you feel like, oh my gosh, like I have a business that's working. This thing spits off money, and like I do this and this, and I help people, and people get results, and you know, I do this and I get more customers, and it's like, dude, it feels like magic, right? Like you feel like you're the king of the world. And you know, when all of a sudden that doesn't work as well, it can be pretty defeating. Like let's be honest, right? It's like, you know, but just to use that athlete analogy, it's like you work all summer going back for the season and you're just in the best shape of your life, and then you just like I had a year where I broke my ankle, right? Like it was very defeating. Like I broke my ankle right before the season. And man, did I feel crappy for a really long time. And you know, it's just that kind of a thing, and you've got it like that, but that's life, right? It's the reality that you're dealt and you have to deal with. But the point that, you know, really stuck out to me with what you were saying, and you know, being a Jesus guy and talking about your faith, right, is, you know, for whatever reason, like I haven't ever made religion a massive part of what I talk about publicly. But like, there's a high percentage of, I think, Christian entrepreneurs that are attracted to what I'm talking about, and I think Christian entrepreneurs, like, or Christians, have a tendency to think of their faith as like a one, like it's all based around this one time thing of like a, you know, sort of I prayed a prayer. And I'm not getting into easy believism or anything like that. It's just like, I'm a Christian because I prayed a prayer, right? But what the Apostle Paul talks about is I die daily, right? And so if you apply this concept to your vocational calling, very few of us, when you read through the Bible, are called to be pastors and biblical teachers, prophets, whatever, you know, all the spiritual gifts. Most of us are called to something, to do something in the real world, whether that's be a tent maker, whether that's be a nurse, whether that's be a chiropractor. And that is your, you know, that's your missionary field from the standpoint of, like, not just, you know, it's very easy to think of that as like, okay, then I should be preaching to everyone. That's not what I'm saying. It's like, how do you show up and do your work every day? And so
Yeah.
if you're going to die daily and walk out your vocational calling, part of your calling is to learn those communication skills, right? That's like dying every day and saying like, okay, I have to pick up my cross and walk this out. That's part of the deal.
Yeah, that's profound, dude. That's really good. You're exactly right. And if I could be real candid here for a moment, so this year, I've had some practices that I've owned, and but I haven't been in like practice, lay my hands on people, looking them in the eye, and adjusting them, taking care of them, and in a number of years. And my wife came to me at the beginning of this year, and we did this 7 day water fast, and she kept going with our church, and she was just getting some things, some downloads, and I was, you know, just a praying wife, praying and fasting wife. I just have learned to listen. And so lo and behold, she hit me one day, and it goes with the point you're making. Uh, you know, the Bible says that if you bury your treasure, you know, they gave three talents, and the one who buried, right? It wasn't just that they went without. It wasn't what they, you know, neglected and or, you know, chose. It was termed wicked
Mm-hmm.
in the eyes of God, like when you bury. And so she used that on me, but she was partially right. Like she's like, but you're a good adjuster. There's people to take care of. We could still do it in the model that we're trying to do. But I will say, Roy, there's been a lot of times with people in my life and friends, but also colleagues, and I've been business partners with many of them where I've had my eyes saying, "Oh, look what I could go do over here," or "Look what I need to go aspire to here," or "They're doing that, I could do that," and I lost attention on the gifts that God gave me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just speaking, I'm not saying this is others, But I think in a day and age when we're looking at what is everybody else doing versus what am I called to do? Because true joy and fulfillment, not happiness, but joy is going to come from doing the work that God gave you with the gifts that he gave you. So I think maybe some of you may need to hear this like I needed to hear it, which is, have you maybe looked at other things and maybe you're not winning right now to the degree you were, and you're not feeling like you're fulfilled because you're looking at things in a way that what the world could give you or what others are doing, and you've left your, it's like when, I played baseball in college, and honestly, and I respect your path too, because I'm so grateful for sports, because it showed me the grind and the competition. If somebody else can do it, I'm going to figure out how to do it. And if I get pushed, I'm going to push back, right? It's like if I said this and I do this and people said no to it, I'm not saying, oh, they're bad. What did I do that I need to change? And getting coaching and mentorship. And so I'm thankful for sports, but if I really go back and look at it, the reason why I played sports so long, it wasn't that I just loved baseball. I wish I could have took the pressure off. I was trying to make my dad happy and see significance in me because he loved sports. And it wasn't that he was bad or wrong. It's just that he loved sports. So I knew, or I have one of 8 kids. So like the attention came when I was good at sports. So I'm going to go pursue that. But I was really looking for like my father's like good, you're good, you're okay, it's okay. So I try to parent a little bit different, but I'm also very thankful for that. My point in saying that in the business space and where this podcast is, why are you really doing it? Like at the end of the day, you potentially are trying to please people that are they're going to die someday. Hate to break it to you, but it's true. Then what? Then you're going to be hit with the thing of, what do I want to do? What am I called to do? What am I supposed to do? And I would argue when you start to ask that question right now, what am I supposed to do? What gifts do I have that others maybe don't have? What will the world pay me for? And ultimately, what will make me satisfied? What am I passionate about? And I think where that comes together, I think we're seeing a world where it's like everybody else is doing this, so I'll go do it. And that, I think, is why we've gotten weary versus, man, God gave me these gifts. And dude, what you said was so good, because if you are a faith-filled person and you believe God gave you these gifts and you have an ability to hone those gifts, if things aren't going the way you want, yeah, biblically speaking, you got to figure that out, right? We got to go after it. So that spoke to my heart, dude. Thanks for that.
Yeah, man, appreciate it. So you were either a shortstop or a center fielder?
Ah, good call. Yeah, I was middle infield, shortstop in high school and second base in college.
Okay. Yeah. So baseball was my first love. We haven't talked about this, but yeah, I should have stuck with baseball. I have
What were
people
you,
tell me.
first baseman?
Well, I was a shortstop, and then I kind of got moved over to third base. I
Oh,
I wasn't super quick. Um, so
golly,
yeah,
dude, a
kind of
6'4" shortstop, man. That's like Jeter. You were missing your calling there. It's.
yeah. Yeah, we went to the College World Series this year with one of my kids, and
Oh, my old stomping grounds. I used to go there in Omaha.
yeah, yeah, it was awesome. There's the Oregon State has a 6'4" shortstop that's just a stud. So yeah, my 11-year-old was pretty impressed by him. Made a bunch of amazing plays and hit a game tying home run, and it
That's
was
so
fun.
good.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Um. So when when you like, I guess this just to kind of wrap that thought up, like I always tell people, right? And it's like, yeah, go to church and all this stuff, but like the most important piece of being a Christian is you got to learn how to hear the voice of God.
Mm,
Um, and that doesn't mean you hear this audible voice, but like if you're a believer, the Holy Spirit is within you, and step number one is obeying Him.
mm,
And I just think that like it's very easy to outsource your faith to like, well, I go to church and the pastor tells me what to think. And that's not all that different than what we're talking about now in the entrepreneurial space, where it's like kind of a copycat world, right? And you know, as great as Hormozy's content is, who's he's the entrepreneur who's kind of blowing up more than anyone right now, right? Like if you're just copying what, because Hormozy has these frameworks, it's like, here's a framework, you can follow this framework. And they're great frameworks, just like your pastor is teaching you theology, and this is the correct way to believe about God. But it's your faith and your testimony is what you're walking out day to day. It's not like, I don't think when you die and you get to meet God and you're being judged, the judgment isn't based on well, let me see your you need to perfectly diagram out how the Trinity works, and you need to perfectly be able to describe the exact mechanism of salvation or atonement, right? It's what you walk out. And I think that's what we're getting at here is like, are you even like, if you're a healthcare entrepreneur and a Christian, are you walking by faith? Like, are you getting those downloads? Are you hearing that voice and walking that out? Or are you just following someone else's formula and copying other people?
Dude, that's good. Do you know who Forrest Frank is?
Yeah. Yeah, dude,
Yeah.
he's awesome.
So have you noticed that it just bring up because you've noticed? So Forrest Frank did this, he broke his back and then he do the song, God's got my back, and then Lemonade. And then if you notice over the last week, you got guys like Corey Asbury that come out and he kind of was doing a spoof on it. And then even, West, why can't I think of his name? West. But anyways,
Right.
he's been around a lot longer. Matthew West. He did a thing about, I got a bee sting on my pinky finger. Anyway, their whole point is they were trying to play it because Forrest Frank's blowing up because Forrest Frank is who he is. And then he had this thing. And so they're all kind of playing off and trying, hey, I'm going to make music from my bed because I've got a bee sting or I've got this other thing. And Forrest came out and he's like, you guys are hurting my feelings. And it was very authentic, like, hey, and I just remind me of too, the Lord is speaking to Forrest and he's listening of this is what I'm supposed to do. And this is this is the music and the lyrics I need to write. And everybody else trying to emulate. And he's, so that just hit me. If you're right, it's the Holy Spirit is in you. So what's the Lord telling you to do? And sometimes it may not be what you want to hear. Truthfully, some of the things I've heard in the last 6 months and, and sometimes God will use other people like your wife or friends or colleagues or maybe a podcast, what you hear. But you're right. Then at that point too, it's going in and don't ever say, hey, I can't do it. You just have to die to yourself like Paul every single day and say, I need to go figure out. The whole Navy SEAL, don't wish it was easier. Wish you were better.
Yeah.
Right. And we talked about earlier, right before this, there's part of your brain when you do hard stuff, anterior cingulate gyrus, when you do hard stuff, it grows. And it's bigger in people who go through harder stuff. It's smaller in people, by the way, who are overweight. It gets bigger when they actually lose weight. So it's like the brain is wired to do what it will. Again, you can train your brain to see what you want to see. The world isn't the way it is. You don't see the world the way it is. You see the world the way you are. So even getting on this podcast, what have you been paying attention to that maybe has told you, oh, things are tough or things aren't as good or things that versus I see this other reality over here. People are crushing it right now. And I feel a calling on my life. And I'm not trying to be like them, but I am trying to emulate what are maybe some principles that are being used. And so for me, when I wrote in a book that I've coming out, talking about Jesus, but not from the faith standpoint, but from his communication strategy. So I've got a 4-point system that I would love to teach anybody. Here it is. Number one is you got to have your mirror neurons. You got to be convicted of what you do. That's what we talked about earlier. People have to feel that you, one, care, and two, are an expert. So don't go anywhere else unless that is. The second thing is that Jesus did so well is his tone, right? The tone of voice. If you study tone in sales, you will quickly find out that it's not what you said it, but it's how you say it was more important. But that's all predicated on what you believe about your thing and about your offer and about yourself and your identity. The third piece then is asking the right questions at the right time. They did study AI technology on a million sales conversations. Those who sold the most spoke 44% less. Those who sold the most spoke 44% less. So if you're going to speak less, guess what we're going to do? You're going to ask more questions. Questions, right? 48.7% of the Gospels or what the words that came out of Jesus' mouth were in the form of a story or a question. So
Mm-hmm.
questions is third point, and the fourth point is stories. So mirror neurons, tone, question, stories. Those are the four key aspects to better communication when you're in a conversion mechanism. It's not necessarily on, I mean, you could do it on videos and such, but, this question's going to be a little bit, you're going to have to, fill in some gaps. But I just want to give the audience like some very practical things. Check those things: your belief and your mirror neurons, your tone, your questions that you're asking. So that it's like, why did God ask questions in the Old and New Testament? Well, he didn't need to know the answer. He knew the answer. But it turns out, even with the reason why Jesus did it was because he didn't want robots that were just doing what he said, but that they actually were convicted and they actually had their own perspective. They owned it. That's why we ask questions. And then fourthly, being able to tell stories. If you're not a good storyteller, you can become. I wasn't either. I don't even consider myself one, but there's formulas when you put it in there. A better story is better, a bad story is better than greater
Yeah.
facts any day.
Yeah. What do you think about the principle of detachment? Right. I think the easy way of understanding this is sort of like commission breath, right? It's like they're just too attached to the sale, right? Like I've gotta make this sale, otherwise I can't pay the bills, right?
The shortest cut to having to not having commission breath and to being not needy is getting more new patients.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, just get more. When you get more, they say no, you say next. Like, now there's better ways there's also additional ways to detach yourself. And I like you. Well, here's the deal. You are in a space that there is a limited amount. So if you're going to just Kairos, and I know you're not, because there's some other people that you work with or are prospects, but if you were just in the chiropractic space and you are a B2B business, there is a limited amount of humans that you're going to be able to work with. It just is. It just is. I've lived this. It's like, so then you have to think about all these different messages and angles, blah, blah, blah. I don't envy you. But on the other side, it's like, if you are in a health doctor, health expert, and in the natural space, unfortunately, you have so many sick people that are desperately need what you have. So I just never like to hear the idea of, I need them. You don't need them. Go get more of them. But getting more of them means you got to get better at what you do, or getting people on your team that are better at getting people what they do. That's how, but you're nailing something, which is most people are showing up. I need them. I got to pay my bills. I got to just survive. And it's like, oh, I can't let them go. And then I sacrifice my recommendations, and I sacrifice my true principles, and I sacrifice what I really believe. And so therefore, then I just and it's over before it starts.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's like, and that's why Jesus is asking people in the form of questions, right? And it's like he said, the thing I'm thinking of is the how Jerusalem, how often I've desired to gather you under my wing as a chick gathers her chick, or as a hen gathers her chicks, right? And it's like, he wanted it, but it's like, I can't force you, right? I'm not going to force you. This is your choice ultimately, right? So there's, even with him, like, there's this principle of absolute pure love, but also it's your choice.
Yeah.
I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do. I'm going to do what I see the Father doing, but ultimately it's in you. You get a choice here.
Dude, I've been in a lot of rooms. I've got this, some of you have seen this poster that I created, a long time ago, but it just shows all the neurology of the adjustment and all that stuff. And I could, somebody asked about chiropractic and how it affects the brain, I could debate them, but I've learned this the hard way, right? Whereas if I go into a room, it's a researcher or a PhD, whoever, or a mom, plumber, doesn't matter. I've learned that instead of preaching and teaching them facts and data and logic and science, I just, let me ask you a question. And you can't be stumped when you know truth. So Luke 10, Jesus came across the guy that wanted to challenge him and said, how do you get to how do you get to experience kingdom of heaven? And he said, what does the book of Moses say? He answered with a question.
Yeah.
He's like, love the labor all your heart. But yes, go ahead and go do that. But then he said, what about my neighbor? Who is my neighbor? Then he tells the story of the Good Samaritan. So in this little verse, right, it's asked a question, got a question, asked a question, and then told a story. So you think about your report of findings. If you're a natural health practitioner, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is you do, there is this indoctrination process that people don't like to hear, but Jim Collins calls it, this is exactly how you build big companies. There's an indoctrination process where you educate them and you get out of them and you pour into them. So I just think a report of findings, our profession in the chiropractic is like, everybody's like, give me 3 minutes or 5 minutes. I'm like, oh my goodness, I can guarantee you your retention sucks. No. And so what if I told you being able to put in stories at the right time, ask the right question at the right time, will literally get people to convince themselves so they believe some of the words coming out of your mouth, they believe all the words coming out of their own mouth. So let's get them talking, but then do it with the right tone and conviction, but also it's just, I'm fascinated by this stuff, dude, because I've also studied it enough to be, I could ask them a question. I know, Roy, this may sound like a weird question, but go with me here. I used a transition. I'm pausing. I'm looking away. Go with me here on this one. Do you believe that your headaches are coming from like the headaches themselves, or do you think that there's something causing the headaches? See, why I asked that question, it's very simple, but if I can get that person to recognize, which they will, say, like something must be causing them, great. We're going to find, and by the way, do you think that what's causing them is a lack of like medications in your body, or do you think there's something underneath it? And once they concede to, no, I bet there is, great. I'm going to find out what that cause could be. And if we can help you, I'll tell you that. If I can't, tell you too. So it's like they get to see, this doctor, and they're part of it just by asking them some simple questions. So this is stuff that I geek out on because
Yeah.
I don't think we were never taught this stuff.
Yeah, 100%. And just for anyone who's listening here, like the effectiveness of that example he just gave is so greatly diminished if you don't do hey, this might sound like a weird question, but will you just go with me here? Like if you don't do that part first, if you're just like, oh, I have my script and I just read the last question, and then the next question is, do you think your headaches are caused by something else? Right? If you just go straight to that,
Dude, you're sharp. Here's the deal, dude. You're really sharp. Literally, it's like I'm not that smart of a guy, but I am. I have a little bit of an intuition and empathy, and you do too, clearly, because you picked that up. It's what we call a transition. It's just a simple transition statement, and if you know how to add these transitions, because I also have to. I'm also a pre-planned guy. Like I'm not that funny, but I have to add in some jokes sometimes. So I've got to be pre-planned. And you're exactly right. Some of you have just given this script, and then you sound weird, and you wonder why they won't pay you. Because you
yeah,
just sound like a weird robot. And
yeah,
so if you know how to just like I asked my daughters, hey, what do you want? Maybe, hey, what do you want for breakfast? I don't know, Dad. I know you don't know. But if you did know, what would you say? It's just these little things that can help you never feel salesy and never feel like you're challenging them, or it's just having conversation,
yeah,
like this. But good
100%, man.
good
Yeah.
pickup.
And that's the way conversation works, right? And it's like there's a flow to it, right? There's ups and downs, and you know, you don't want your conversations when you're with a patient to be like the conversation where everything is it's just all small talk, right? It's just like, the women get to church, get together at church, and that's all they want to tell you all their stories, and it's like no one's really listening, and
Yep.
it's like, but this is how you get like, hey, I know this might be a weird question, right?
Here's another
It's like,
gem, just so we give some value
yeah,
here for a second. So when somebody shows, we know that loss aversion is a cognitive bias in the brain. Basically, the brain is 2.3 times more likely to do something to avoid a pain than to seek a gain. So one of the things we would like to ask, I would just recommend somebody would ask, is showing them also visuals distort every other sense. So creative, more important to get them to stop than the actual copy, right? So vision distorts every other sense. So vision, what you're seeing, don't tell them if you could show them. So if you're showing them something, whether it be a scan, it could be an x-ray, thermography, HRV, whatever it is you're showing them, you want to at least have gotten to be able to ask them, hey, what do you see? That means you have to give them a reference point. But here's where most chiros, and I was training this one awesome chiro out of Atlanta, she goes, I always felt like I was just selling until you told me that one transition statement. And so we want to get them to the place where what's going to happen if nothing's done? But if I said, hey, Rory, what do you see? What is that doing to you? And then what's going to happen if you don't do anything for this? Yeah, okay. You're going to get a response, but watch this. Once I get to that question, which I want to get them into, the loss aversion, right, is I just have to say, hey, Rory, man, I know at this point, like, you've been through this, you see this, and I appreciate you following with me here. But, and I know you already know this, but I always get on the same page with all my patients, just so that we, what we're doing, why we do it, and ultimately what's going to happen. But I know you know this, but unfortunately, what will happen, if you just kind of let this here, maybe waited on this and let this go for longer. So notice again, I'm doing a lot there, but that's not salesy. I'm not trying to come off salesy. I'm just trying to get him to concede that, yeah, that's not like, it's not good. And then I can come and say, well, that's not going to get better. I say, you're right. Unfortunately, it's not only just not going to get better. It's going to do what? Typically, this is going to, left alone, that's going to get what? And I'm using some facial features. And now it's like, it's like, well, it's potentially going to get worse. Here's what we're not going to let that happen to you. And so here's what we do. We've set up a care plan. So I'm using the biases in the brain, but I'm not coming across like I care. I want you to know that will, unfortunately, because of gravity and the stress that you're upon, and it's already there, it's going to get worse. So we're not going to let that happen. But I can't just come out and use a script that somebody taught me and not know the tone, know a transition, know how to pause and stutter through it. Not that I act like it's one of the first times I've ever said it before. So anyway, just in case you're out there struggling and you don't think it can happen and you can be better at it.
Yep. 100%. And I just call it, just to drive this home for people who are listening. It's like, I call that the cost of inaction question. Cause in my mind, right. What do we always say? Like it's when value exceeds price, people buy. Right. And so it's what you're doing here is you're saying, well, the cost of not doing anything is actually more expensive than the cost of paying for this care plan, this treatment, right? And that's what people have to get to that place. And if you're not asking that question, if you don't have a way of this person telling you, they've got to tell you what their downside is.
Yeah.
It's
so crazy. You call it cost of inaction. It's exactly, I didn't even use it that way because I wasn't thinking, on that. But we call it the cost of no. Right. You know what your care plan costs. That's the cost of yes. The question is, what's the cost of them saying no? Do you have clarity about that? Mm-hmm. And this is the difference between the good and the great, is because do you understand when somebody's in chronic pain, which is 24.3% of adults, if they're in chronic pain, where do they end up going, right? They end up going to the doctor, they get the test, and then blah, blah, blah. Okay, then they get the drugs. What do the NSAIDs do to them? What do opioids do to them? It rips down their serotonin levels. The serotonin levels, it destroys their gut, but their serotonin is their joy and their happiness hormones. Why do I bring that up? Because part of it is I can show that they're going to cost more. Medical bankruptcy is the number one reason for bankruptcy, is sick medical debt. So it's going to cost them in money. It's going to cost them in time and memories and suffering. And it's like there's so many layers to the cost of no that when you become, this is the mirror neuron effect that I talked about. You're never trying to sell them because you really believe and know the bridge is out. They don't see it. I got to get in front of you here so you don't go through that bridge out, right? That's what we have to get. And when you get there, conversions happen, they just happen, so, but there's some skills to it, to your point. So I'm so glad you brought it to, obviously, if you're listening to this and you're not, clearly you would be a part, or at least have listened to Rory in the past. We haven't had a lot of interactions. I know we met each other, years ago, but I just tell the sharpness. I always ask, media guys, marketing guys, sales guys, like, what is so different about how you do things? And I can always tell, it's like the way you think about things ends up being, I read these little things just like you do. It's like, I could tell you're, one, attentive to detail, but no, some of those details are not just, hey, do this and this. It's, I got it. So anyway, man, I got mad respect for you to kind of recognize that and see it. Tells me it probably translates, not probably, it translates in all the work that you do, is why you've had, such success.
Appreciate it, man. So I know we're probably kind of getting a little bit to the end of our time here. There's kind of like two things I wanted to touch on. I kind of like how this has gone down the route of like really giving people some specifics. And so, we've touched on some specific skills for selling, actually having conversations with people. And I thought it might be valuable, and I'll have you drop, here in a little bit. I just want to make sure people know where to find you if they want help with these kinds of things. But the it's like, okay, so here's how we have the conversations. What if you're not having the conversations? What if you're like, Josh, I just can't get patience, right? So we talked about it a little bit. Like we probably have the wrong attitude about that in the first place. Um, we're not taking the actions we need to take to get the patience, right? But here's a quick story of somebody that I've been working with for the last 2 years. For the first year, this is a naturopathic doctor, and he's doing a few different things, but at the end of the day, what I want to tell you about is the massive breakthrough he had, where like for him, he's doing kind of okay-ish, right? It's like, okay, he's getting patients, he's profitable, he's making money, he's slowly growing, but then something happened where all of a sudden he went from like, okay, 2x return on investment when he's doing ads, and kind of like okay-ish conversion rates, and it's kind of like some of these patients are good patients, but some of them just really aren't there for the right reasons, kind of a thing, right? We all know the story. To all of a sudden, right now, we're talking about when everybody thinks, oh my gosh, social media doesn't work anymore, or you can't do paid ads, you can't do YouTube ads, whatever it is. $5 leads right now at this time, when that's the kind of things you used to see in 2016.
Mhm.
And so here it is. And I just thank this guy for being coachable. It was like, dude, like we just have to, like, we've got to come across better. Like when you talk with me, like, you're passionate. When you get on these videos, they just aren't good. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to go pick your 3 or 4 favorite people that you love their videos online. Right? It's just like, I watch these guys' videos, they're awesome. What we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna take those videos and we're gonna watch those videos. And then we're also gonna film ourselves. So sorry, this probably sounds confusing, but so we're gonna take these 3 or 4 guys, we're gonna grab their videos, 3 or 4 of our favorite videos, and then we're gonna film ourselves, and we're gonna basically put these videos up and compare them. So we're gonna watch the video without sound. What is their body language? Why do you like their videos? Now compare it to yours. Take notes. All right. So you've got 3 of your own videos, 3 of their videos, and you watch those videos and you can see, like, oh my gosh, this is how I come across. I come across dull. I come across boring. I come across without lacking conviction. Okay. Now turn the video off, close your eyes and listen. How does their voice sound? Now listen to yours. Take notes. So all of a sudden he does this, right? So he does it. And then what I also had him do was transcribe the videos. You see all the ums, the pauses, the unclear things that are written out. And I said, so he transcribes them, his and the other people's. That's what caused him to, like, he just can't hire people now. Right? That's his biggest challenge now, is like, I cannot keep up with how much business I'm getting because everybody wants this. And so, that's just like another tactic that you guys can do, right? When we talk about this, if this is your vocational calling, if you're doing the right thing, like, do you need to go through that process to be critical of yourself, to self-evaluate and say, like, here's where I need to get better? Because I promise you, if you do, it's going to make a massive difference. So I just wanted to give that one other tactic, right? Because all of a
What did he
sudden,
do? Give me the 30-second version of, like, what were the things that he found out that he changed?
I don't know the specifics, right? What I know is he was like, I did that, and his videos, like, he didn't give me the list of specific changes, but all of a sudden he started getting ridiculously inexpensive leads, and all these people wanted to schedule, and all these people wanted what he was selling, right? It wasn't like, oh yeah, I saw the special, and what's the guarantee? Like, it was
Yeah.
like, that's what I want. I
Yeah.
need it.
First off, that's awesome because most people won't do it. Do the things that most people won't do. They always say that. Like, that's a lot of work. You're going to
Yeah,
transcribe it. You're going to watch it. You're going to put your own. You're going to that's work. That's what we're talking about. Roll up the sleeves and actually get to work. Otherwise, you're going to be exposed and make excuses. But the other thing, and I'm not mad. I'm just trying to say that, like, there's so many people out there that I want you to be able to help and reach. But I would argue that if we watch the videos side by side of what he was and where he was, there's this element, it's all mirror neurons, right? But there's this element of conviction. And one of the things, if you're on here, here's an easier way to go do this, or just a way, is what's your antagonist, right? If you look at every movie, the only reason a movie is worth watching because it has stakes. The stakes has the bad guy. The bad guy could win or get stuff. So it's stakes. So you study, like I've studied story for a long time. So think about this. Who's your antagonist? What is your antagonist? And so I always take my clients to a big three. What pisses you off? What breaks your heart? What problem do you solve? What pisses you off? What breaks your heart? What problem do you solve? Do it in that order. And you will actually start to get what I call this Ephesians 5:11 moment, which is take no parts in the fruitless seeds of darkness, but instead expose them. The thing that you're against is going to come out. So think about your avatar and who you're trying to reach. What do you do for them? And then think about, let's just say you did weight loss. Well, right now, what are they up against? You're up against Ozempic and Wegovy and all these, drugs. So go look at and just put in GPT, what are the side effects of those drugs? And then go on there, start to expose the gastroparesis and pancreatitis and bowel obstruction. And you could say, you can't rob Peter to pay Paul. Everybody's running to this because it's easy, but we don't even know the side effects. What if there was a different? So what I'm saying is back to what it is. What pisses you off about, right? What breaks your heart, right? Because then the empathy comes out, and then what problem you solve. It could be anything, but just start to think about that. Get your antagonist, because on video, people will follow those who have strong roots and are willing to fight for them, right? And then when you expose, you didn't know that opioids and NSAIDs were eating your gut, causing you leaky gut, causing you to have autoimmune cysts down the road, let alone robbing you from serotonin, which is your joy. Like that pisses me off that you don't know that and that you're headed there. So anyway, I digress a little bit, but
yeah,
that's a good dude. That's so good. Don't wish you were better.
Yeah, 100%, man. So I mean, let's kind of get to a place where you wrap it up. If you could like, I want you to share the piece that you shared earlier about this area of the brain that grows, right? Because it's like, okay, all this stuff we talked about, hey, you guys out there, you're gonna have to do some hard work, right? You're like, if you're in practice, if you want better for your family, if you want better for yourself, if you want better for your patients and your community, like there's going to be some deep work that's required. So yeah, if you could just share that, and then maybe just kind of help tell the people where they can find you if they want to know more and connect with you more.
Yeah, that's great. I love this. One of my favorite quotes in the world is, "The pain of discipline is always easier than the pain of regret." So I think if you're on here, you're like, nobody likes to hear it's going to be painful. Like you've got 5 boys, dude. God bless you. I got 3 girls, and we don't want our kids to have to go through pain. We want to protect them from that. But at the end of the day, it's just how God created it. There's a book I read called Anti-Fragile by a guy named Nassim Taleb. I don't recommend it, but basically says when you go through stuff, it's the only way you're going to learn. So there's this part of the brain that you're referring to that grows as you do hard stuff. And it turns out this part of the brain is actually connected to your will to live. Meaning, the bigger this is, you ever notice this when there's just some people that they get a diagnosis or something happens to them and they like die? It's like they did. And I used to think, man, how is it that your biology could be so affected by your psychology? Because some people just die. It's like, but others, it makes them fight harder than they survive. And I just used to kind of think it was just the way of it is. But it turns out this would explain it, that this area of your brain gets bigger when you go through hard stuff. And so it's so fascinating to me that we can change it. So being intentional about hard stuff, people that do cold plunges, people that put themselves in environments that are hard, people that, end up, having a level of discipline that is unmatched. So I think the takeaway there, but yeah, that's the reality, is that there's a part of the brain that grows when you do hard things. And I was just reading an article this morning about retirement. There's this thing called FIRE. I never really looked at it, but financially independent, retire early. I think that it's one of the worst things we could ever do, because if that's the goal, I thought the goal is serving people and having joy and fulfillment with the gift that you shouldn't bury or you're wicked. So getting that gift requires hard work, just that we all went through. Whether you're, an expert, you had to go, like I had to go through organic chemistry, the hardest class I've ever taken in my life. And, but you just go through it and you learn how to take a test. You learn how to, figure it out. So I think one of the worst things to happen to people is they get soft and you're just looking towards retirement and you're just putting on weight. And I think when you turn the tides on that and say, my real true joy and fulfillment in life, the thing I'm really seeking is going to cause, it's only going to come from putting in the work. And like you just said with that brilliant example with that guy, like, are you willing to put in the work? So, and knowing your brain grows. So it's not just, hey, my result didn't just come from a video getting more hits and more new patients. I'm literally becoming a different human because parts of my brain are growing that I'm only going to build on. And so to me, it's not easy because I go to the gym every day. Well, 6 days a week that my wife and I run on Sundays, but I'm going to tell you, and people don't like, oh, maybe you should learn how to love the gym. And I'm like, I don't like going to the gym, but I hate the regret worse if I don't go there. But the second thing is the reason why I don't like the gym because it's painful. Because I know in order to continue to grow, I'm going to have to put my muscles and my lungs through some painful stuff. So I don't love that, but I love the result. And that's God's law. So anyway, that's a little piece of that. So doing hard stuff. Yeah, you guys are the best to reach me if this hit a chord or you have questions on it. Just send me an IG message. Well, yeah, you send me an IG message. So IG Dr. Dan Sullivan, Dr._Dan Sullivan, IG, Instagram. You could also go to my website if you're a chiropractor, chiropracticadvocate.com. And then I also have some books coming out, or a book coming out, and that you can find that at therealdansullivan.com, not the fake, therealdansullivan.com. So.
So don't go to the fake dansullivan.com. All right.
Yeah.
All right, cool, man.
Good, dude.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate your time. Appreciate you being here. And yeah, I've really enjoyed talking to you. So let's connect again soon.
Yeah. Let's figure out how to work together. So, all right, guys. Yeah. Appreciate all you.
All right.
Get to work.
See you guys.
You've been listening to the Super Clinic Project podcast. If you like what you hear, subscribe and stay tuned for further episodes of the Super Clinic Project podcast.